All right, everyone. So I thought I would do a garden update. I haven't done one of these in a while. So in this bed here, we have all these brassica greens. We have bok choy. We have mizuna or Japanese mustard. We also have a lot of collard greens, and we also have Swiss chard. And then in the middle here, got these mixed greens that are growing in between these bok choys and these collards. Got some more Swiss chard growing here. Not all of these bok choys I planted myself. A number of these bok choys actually are volunteers, pretty much wild. For example, this bok choy is wild. This mizuna is wild. This mizuna here is wild. Bok choy here is wild. This bok choy I planted myself. It's really quite amazing. The wild bok choy actually grew from seed that popped up from a plant that grew by itself. So really, one of the tricks to easy gardening is to just allow leafy green vegetables like bok choy or other brassicas to just flower, go to seed, and die naturally. And then once the next season comes, boom, you have edible weeds. You have brassicas, you have bok choy and mustard greens popping up out of the ground by themselves without you even doing anything. And guess what? They are completely acclimated to your climate, completely conditioned to your backyard. You don't really need to take care of them too much. There's not a whole lot of insect issues, and they're a lot stronger. Like, for example, look at this bok choy, which is a volunteer, grew by itself. Look at this bok choy in comparison to this one. This one I planted from seed that I bought. So this is not a domesticated bok choy. This is not a native bok choy. It's not a bok choy that came up by itself and acclimated from the climate or anything like that. This is from seed that I purchased this year. But compare it to this one. This one is bigger, stronger. It just looks like it's thriving a lot more. Same thing to be said with this Japanese mustard here. This is Japanese mustard that grew on its own. Another fascinating thing is this Japanese mustard here. This one, you can tell by looking at it that it is a hybrid between Japanese mustard and bok choy. I can tell because this is how a mizuna or Japanese mustard looks like without any sort of cross-pollination. And you can see the leaves are soft, almost feathery. But this one, you can tell it's tougher, and the texture of the leaf is closer to bok choy. So this is actually the result of mizuna and bok choy cross-pollinating on this bed last year. Here I have, hello kitty, yeah. So up in this bed here, I got Japanese daikon radishes. These grow very well. Got a dandelion here, some fennel, beets growing here, got a beet growing here, and then over here I have fennel, and then in the middle of these fennels I have celery growing here, and then here I have more fennel. This is all fennel growing. Here I have beets, lots and lots of beets. They're looking very, very healthy. And then in the midst of these beets, you have a dill. And I did not plant this dill. This dill is, I want to say, like third generation for my backyard, because I planted dill about 3 years ago. And then it went to seed, and then the next year I had wild dill. So last year I had wild dill growing around this same area. So I just let it flower, I let it die naturally, and then bam, I got all this dill, free dill. And it grows amazingly. It grows very strongly. These plants become really big, and they provide you with dill throughout the fall, the winter, and for the spring as well. And for some of the summer, it'll grow into early summer as well. But once they, flower and go to seed, just let them die naturally. And next year you'll have dill. Like I've said before, let your weeds be your food. Let your weeds be your food. And these beets are growing nicely. They're not there yet. I planted these about a month ago. They're getting there. In a few months, they'll be pretty big. This one's already gotten decently sized. Then here I have a cardoon. This is basically a cousin of artichoke, and you're supposed to eat these stems, and they have the taste of artichoke supposedly. But I want to make different recipes with them. I want to do it in the French style, which is with cream and cheese, which sounds amazing. So over here I have herbs, I have sage, got some pineapple plants that I started, some Swiss chard here. Then I got all these habaneros, tons of habanero. I'm probably gonna have to pickle all these. Lots of habaneros this year. And I planted these habaneros from seed. I didn't get any of these plants from the store, or I didn't grow it from seed that I bought from the store. This is all from my own seed. And I will say these habaneros came out much more productive than the habaneros I've grown before, because I grew these with my own seed. So it's pretty crazy. Then here I got turnips, more beets, lots of beets. And then these are daikon radishes. Lots and lots of beets, more chilies. Again, I'm gonna have to pickle these. I got so many of them. Lots of peppers. Another cardoon over here. And then this is all beets, radishes, and more beets. Here I have a special plant. This is called tansy. This is a very, very strong herb. You can make a tea with this, but I don't drink this a lot, because if you do, it will give you nausea. Believe me, I know. The only reason why you would drink this is if you have worms, or if you want something to put you to sleep. This herb, if you put it in a tea and drink it, it will make you very drowsy quite quickly. But don't go past 2 cups, because once you go past 2 cups, you're in the danger zone. One night I drank 4 cups, and the next morning I pretty much had a hangover. So you don't want to drink this too much. This is a medicinal plant and should be used as such. But if you want to drink something that's going to make you drowsy and make you just crash and fall asleep easier, this is a great plant, and it pretty much never dies. I grew this tansy from seed, I want to say almost 2 years ago, and it's still here. It survives through the summers, it survives through the cold and the rain, so yeah. And then here I have more beets. Gonna have plenty of beets for pickling, and also to make lots and lots of borscht, which I love. Here I have burdock. Started growing burdock. I hear you can make a great beer with it. You can ferment burdock and make beer. Here I have a grapevine, and it's gonna go dormant pretty soon. Here I have Swiss chard, lots of Swiss chard, parsley, and more Swiss chard. Here I have mixed greens. These are mixed salad greens, kale, and different types of salad greens. And then also here I have burdock. This is burdock here, and they grow quite big, and they produce these giant plants. And here I have some mustard. This is mallow. The chickens love to eat it. It's a cousin of okra. The leaves are very slimy. It tastes good if you saute it with lots of garlic and put some salt and pepper on it, and some onion and a little lemon juice. But it makes great food for the chickens. This bed is quite empty. I have some Japanese Mizuna that I grew here, but I put some turnip seed, and you can see the little turnip seeds are coming out. So that's awesome. So we'll have turnips here. Got garlic here. Here, this is a work in progress. The soil here is terrible. It's very rocky. but I have some herbs here, some rosemary and sage. But I'm gonna have to be developing the soil. Gonna have to add lots of chicken manure and kitchen scraps and dried leaves and all that to develop the soil for this area, because it's pretty much rock. Here I have Swiss chard, and these are growing very healthy. I have some oregano here. And then here is a Thai chili that I grew from seed. And I'm gonna have to put this in a pickle jar soon. But they taste really good, actually. And then I have some more beets on the side here. Some sweet potatoes, some wild arugula that started growing. Again, once you start gardening and once you just start allowing things to die naturally, you'll start seeing your weeds becoming food. Like, you're gonna see stuff that you grew last year popping up out of the ground in just random spots. So I've been getting wild arugula for the past 2 years already. So this is wild arugula. Tastes excellent. You can make a great pesto. Here's another wild arugula. And then here I have sweet potatoes. So I put sweet potatoes here. And then wild arugula just popped up. Let things grow. Just let things grow the way they go, the way they grow, you know? Here I have turnips. And here, lots and lots of beets. It's old beets. Here's kale. This is what do they call it? Lacinato kale. I planted this one last year. I needed something to plant. Actually, no, I actually planted this. Yeah, I planted this last year. Last fall season. It's still alive. Very strong plant. And then here I have some bok choy. This is Jamaican amaranth or Jamaican spinach that I planted in the summer. If you want to eat greens in the summer, because usually leafy greens don't work out in the summer, they prefer the cold season. But if you want to grow leafy greens in a hot climate, I would suggest you grow Jamaican spinach, or what they call Jamaican sorrel, or not sorrel, amaranth, Jamaican amaranth, or you can get Thai amaranth. I think this is a Thai variety, I'm not sure. But it's good nonetheless. Just go on Amazon and look for amaranth seed, or go to whatever seed seller you go to. Look for amaranth seed. These will tolerate extreme heat, but they do not like the cold. But I'm allowing this plant to die naturally, so that by next year I'll have amaranth growing all over the place. In fact, I think there's some wild amaranth growing already. I saw some here somewhere. It's quite interesting. I'm not seeing it. I know it's here somewhere, but these turnips are already growing. So that's awesome. Can make some mashed turnips soon. They taste almost just as good as mashed potatoes. And then here I have some random leafy greens growing on the side. And then I have this guy. And he is with his harem of 18 wives. Some parsley here. This chard is growing well. Then here I have oregano. I've had this oregano probably almost a decade already. It's old, but it's still growing. And then lots of bok choy, mixed greens here. Got some Swiss chard growing here. Yeah, I love leafy greens. Leafy greens are amazing. I think people don't appreciate them as much because they're leaves. But at the same time, there's so much you can do with them. They grow back. Sometimes they can last for years if you continuously harvest from them and keep cutting their leaves. And there's a lot of recipes you can do with them. You can do pasta recipes with them. You can stuff them into dough and make little pies. There's so many things you can do with them. So like I'm growing beets here, and eventually I'm gonna use them for their roots, but I also use them for their leaves. And the leaves have a good taste. They have a good natural taste to them. Saute them with garlic and onion. Lots of black pepper. You can mash the garlic to give it an even more profound garlicky taste. Cook them with olive oil, with some butter. And they make just an excellent side dish, because sometimes, you eat too much meat and too much starch, a steak, mashed potatoes, which is great, but you want something to balance it out. So you want some green to balance that out. You want some vegetable to balance that out. You just come outside and cut a whole bunch of leaves out and saute them, and you have that balance in your meal. And so you begin to appreciate these leaves. Like when I first started cooking or when I first started growing leafy green vegetables, I didn't really appreciate them that much. I grew them because they were easy to grow and because they can be harvested and they always grow back. And then after eating them for years, I've grown really an immense appreciation for them. So I can't, I can't not grow them. Like I have to grow them every year. They're so amazing. They just add a balance to it, and it's just this continual growth of vegetables that lasts for months and even years if you can find a way to keep them shaded from the extreme sun, because they don't like intense heat. Also here, I have a pepper, and I'm gonna pickle all these peppers soon. So yeah, and I got this empty space. I need to do something with those. So yeah, that's the garden so far. Yeah, hope you guys enjoy your day. All right, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.